So now we'll do welcomes and introductions. So, welcome to the last Heights Task Force meeting of the year. We don't meet again until the 24th of January. So we'll just go around the room and do introductions. So, in case new officers, I'll start. Frankie, welcome to Owen. Everybody here does. Chair, I guess, find out how it works in the next 12 months.
I'm Carolyn, so I'm the secretary. I've been here for a month. Secretary.
And Hostetler, first vice chair.
Zoeller, city finance director.
John Latask, Frank invited me, so I'm going to check it out.
Nancy Steele, Ross Thursday.
And Arnold, Heights citizen.
Terry, Heights citizen.
Janet Davis, school board trustee. Jennifer Owen, board to city council.
Wesley Dunn, I like that. Access. Love it.
Michael Marino, Yellowstone County News.
All right, welcome everybody. It's a pretty small group, but we'll probably get out of here sooner that way. So we don't even have our police officer here yet, so he probably will be showing up hopefully. But, we have, as far as new business, we have Andy Zoeller here tonight, and he's going to kind of relate what the CIP has to do with the Heights for just for the first couple of years. He's going to go through the whole year. Anyway, he's just the messenger. He's not in rules, so if you got serious questions about it, that's where your council representatives are, and you take it to them. He's a little bit sensitive, so we'll have a 10-minute question after his 20-minute presentation. No questions during his presentation, but be nice to him, because I've known Andy for a few years, and he gets his feelings hurt really bad. Take it over, Andy.
All right. Well, thanks for the introduction. I'm Andy Zoeller, finance director for the city. Going through a few things, and it may last 20 minutes, but I don't know if it will. We'll go through it kind of quickly. So, what a CIP is and where we're at, and kind of all that. Want me to turn subtitles on? Okay. So the city every year adopts a 5-year capital improvement plan, and the one we're looking at right now is for fiscal year 24, which will begin July 1st next year, and then go through fiscal year 28, which ends June 30th, 2028. And the reason that we do a 5-year plan is really forward-looking to identify major capital projects, needs in the city, and then start prioritizing them, and then identifying funding for them. There's only so many funds that are available, so we really have to prioritize where projects are going to be. And so it helps citizens understand what's coming, and helps staff and council figure out how to make sure funding's in place when the time comes to do these projects. So things that are in here, you're going to see this is kind of the requirements to get into the plan. The project has to cost more than $25,000, and it has to be a project that has a useful life greater than 1 year. So these are typically new property purchases, new road construction, park development, and trail development, things like that. Things that you will not see in here are vehicles. We have a separate plan for rolling stock, repairs and maintenance, so pothole filling, just general striping. Most of that's not in here. Some maintenance programs are, but they're usually really large maintenance programs. And then operational items, you won't see those in there. So a very summarized look at the 5-year plan. This is what it looks like by project category, or generally by department. You see each fiscal year here for the 5-year plan, totaling $523 million. First year, $77 million. This is what's proposed to council right now. If this were adopted as is, that tells staff, hey, we're gonna start developing the budget in January, and this is gonna be the first kind of building block we're gonna put in. We're gonna take that 77 million, plug it in, and start putting in the revenue sources needed if it's borrowing or whatever that may be in order to make these projects happen. There very well will likely be changes to this. Council has not adopted this plan yet, but it has been presented to them. Let's see, here's the same information, just kind of showing it graphically. Not a big surprise here. Utilities and transportation projects and airport projects, the top two at the bottom of those, typically make up our largest portion. Capital projects or utility projects are intensive in capital areas. You don't see a lot here with police and fire. They don't do a lot of capital projects. They're mostly people. What is unique this year is the recreation projects. The big project there is the rec center plant on the south side. That's kind of unique, I guess, because typically we don't have those in here. They're not large parks and rec projects. Showing the proposed funding sources, most of it funded by debt. Large projects that typically require borrowing and don't build up a lot of funds in order to do capital projects. We usually borrow and then build a project so that the people benefiting from that project are the ones paying for it, rather than paying for it over 20 years so you don't ever see the project and then we build it. There are some federal grants that come in, some of it through assessments, but again, most of it through debt. So again, same information, 523 million. Broken up by department, Public Works makes up the majority of it at 264 million. And then the portion for FY24, the major one, well, I guess the major one is the start of the rec project. It's actually broken up over 2 years. But again, so 80 million here for fiscal 24. So I'm going to kind of fly through these next slides and just so you're aware we have them if you want to go back. I have them kind of broken out each project by department. The airport, there's obviously a lot there. I tried to highlight the ones in the Heights, but I didn't highlight the entire airport. That's all happening at the airport. The big one here is the proposed parking garage in FY28. That would alleviate some of the parking, issues that we were at the airport. Not a lot at the Met. Most of their capital is in buses. They don't have a lot of infrastructure. They're also largely funded with federal grants, so it's as funding is available. Some facilities projects. There's some proposed expansions out at the BOC, which is down on the south side on your way to landfill. It's where all of our fleet maintenance, solid waste trucks are, streets, a lot of the kind of operational stuff out of there. Here's some parks projects that are in the Heights, that highlighted in yellow. Obviously, a variety of years. Let's see, so yeah, Castle Rock, Hawthorne. There's a few wading pool and spray ground replacements in here. I don't understand it here. Castle Rock's the big one coming up. Otherwise, most of that's pushed out a few years. Recreation, as I said earlier, the major project, I think the major individual project, and then in the CIP and then for parks as well, is that rec center. And a fair amount of the parks projects are funded through Park District 1, which I know most of you are familiar with. It's a citywide assessment district for parks. That district will go away, well, it won't go away. It's required to be revoted in every 13 years. And that 13-year mark will come up in the end of 2024. So kind of highlighted in gray, the projects that are proposed to be funded with PD1. If this funding source isn't available, whether it's not reestablished or replaced with a new funding source, those projects, there would be no funding for it. So that's kind of why I've identified them there. There will be funding through fiscal 24. So it's safe to assume those projects will be done, but the ones further out aren't guaranteed. The $1 million project for Holly Vista, that's actually a donation through Landon's Legacy to do development out there in conjunction with some of the city funds as well. So that's actually just a $1 million donation through Park District 1. And I'll show you where the actual CIP document is in a minute, but every project in here has a project page. It gives kind of a brief description of the project, showing, kind of talking about it a little bit, and then also showing the planned funding uses and sources. And this is just the one I pulled for the rec center. So we're showing we're going to spend $6.5 million in fiscal 24, $92 million in fiscal 25. How's that funded? Through a combination of TIF revenue bonds, which that tax increment district would fund a portion, and then it would also require, at this point, the plan is it would require a general obligation bond, which would have to be voted on by the citizens of Billings. So in order for that to happen, there would first have to be a vote that, yeah, we want to increase our taxes to pay for this, and then we could proceed with this project. There are a few projects in here that are funded. I don't have that. I had last night. I can try to pull it up. There are a few other parks projects in here that are funded with GO debt, so there's no funding source that exists today, but the recommendation is that you go out and ask voters if they want to approve this. If they do, then we proceed with it. Transportation projects here. The only one is the Alkali Creek Trail connection. Many of these rely on federal funding, and so we want to have them in the plan so the planning department can pursue federal funding for these projects, but they're not guaranteed. The Fifth Avenue corridor and 25th Street Bridge, the ones in 24, those projects, I believe we have funding sources secured. Everything else is non-secured, so it would require that we are successful in getting some of these grants. Solid waste projects and storm projects. So improvements to storm on Babcock Boulevard, the Heights. These are funded through solid waste through your garbage fees you pay, and then storm projects funded through you pay an assessment on your taxes for stormwater improvements. Transportation projects, that's everything streets related. There's a lot of annual programs in here for street reconstructions, some crossing improvements. Most of this is funded through a combination of street maintenance districts and gas tax. Street maintenance districts is a property tax, it's an assessment on the property tax, and gas tax is collected by the state and remitted to the city through gas taxes. Some of this, I think the downtown two-way conversion, so that we did some of the streets a year ago, I believe, and then this would complete the rest of the streets downtown to two-way. That would be financed through TIF revenue bonds down there, but I think everything else is through existing revenue. And then the Wicks Lane Main to Bitterroot improvements plan there, that's the Heights projects. The remaining utility projects, this is water and wastewater. There's a lot here. We're developing that West End treatment plant and reservoirs, so there's a lot going into that. I'm not certain that, well, there's reservoir site improvements. Most of that project was in last year's CIP, it's in this year's budget, so you don't see a lot of it on here. We haven't started dirt work on that project yet. I believe they're going to bid that in January, February timeframe at this point. Anything else there? There's anything worth highlighting right there. So this is a screenshot of the online map, and I'll jump to that in a second, and I'll show you how to get there. That has all of our projects mapped, and this is where you can go and say, hey, what's going to happen in my neighborhood? And we started this last year, so as we move forward in time, my hope is that we'll retain the history, that eventually we will say, okay, when was this done, or what's been done in my area in the past, and what's coming. it for the presentation, but we're gonna go check this out really quick. So if you go to billingsmt.gov/CIP, it'll take you to our CIP website. My contact info is on there, or you can get that. But let's go there.
And Andy, I think it was all linked on the agenda too.
Was it for this?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they can click on that. I usually send the minutes out right away, so I'll include the link.
Okay.
It's still good to show it because.
Yep. Yeah, I'll show you what we have on here is available to you. So if you typed in billingsmt.gov/CIP, it'll redirect you to the longer, more confusing website there, but it'll get you here. So here you'll find kind of just the generic overview of what I gave you. What is a CIP? You can see the current CIP that's approved, that we have adopted, and then the full proposed CIP. I'll open it just to scroll through really quickly. There's a link to the map, and then there's a project request form. You fill that out. It's an online form, and it'll get emailed to me. What I will do is compile those and let council know, hey, Ed really wanted you guys to build a pool in his backyard, so let's put that in there, or something like that. But I'll take those. I don't get a lot of comments every year. Most of them come at task force presentations. I get 0 to 5 a year through this submission. So, and this is open all year long. It's not you have to do it now. To give you a sense of timeline before I jump forward here, where we're at. So we presented the CIP to council 2 weeks ago, and then last night we gave them kind of some more in-depth information on parks. I believe in 2 more weeks, this will be the first work session in December, we'll give them kind of detailed info on the public works projects, and then we'll be putting it in front of council for adoption at one of the meetings in December. I'm going to try to do the second meeting, which is the 19th. Okay, yep. So I'm going to try to have it on the 19th. To get adopted. So if you get things to me before the 19th, I'll make sure it's part of that presentation to say, hey, here's the information or the requests we got from the public. This is going to be the only task force meeting I do before they adopt it, so it can be riddled with requests from the Heights. So the CIP document is still loading, so we'll go to the map. So if you click on that, let's see, you click on this project map link here, it'll open this up, and you will have, it may take a second to load, there's quite a bit here, but you can zoom in on the Heights and say, okay, well, what's this? They're generally color-coded, Parks and Rec in green, Public Works in blue, but you can click on an option here, and it should load up. Yeah, there we go. So it'll give you the information that's in the CIP about this project. Well, it's the Wicks Lane Main to Bitterroot project. I believe it has it broken out by year, so this one's probably a 2-year project. So the FY25 portions, 1.8 million, covered through assessment revenue in this case, and perhaps a little picture. I'll bet that's the 26 portion of the project. I'm guessing, or the 24. So let's see.
You went down in the corner here.
Oh, it's here now. Yeah. Okay, so they'll design in 24 and then build in 25 is the plan. So that's how that works. You can filter it out by just the fiscal years you want to see. I think if you zoom, there we go. That's great. Zoom out. It should sort over here the largest just by dollars to smallest project, and this field will adjust as you zoom in. So if you were only looking in the Heights and got rid of the airport, well, I won't do it because it's touchy. And then the actual document itself apparently takes a long time to load, but there's all the information we have in there, as well as all the information I just went through, that summary stuff. But then there's individual project pages. Again, most of that information is on the map. So if you really were curious, you could look there. There's probably a couple more fields in here that aren't on the map, but I wouldn't say it's substantially important what you're missing on the map. I think that's all we've got. So we got timeline, what the CIP is, and how you can get a hold of me if you have questions, but I'll leave it at that. Not even 20 minutes.
Good. Any questions?
usually say it started at 25,000.
Mhm.
When was that figure put into that?
Boy.
I mean, that's kind of outdated.
Yeah. So I'm gonna guess that's probably from the mid 2000s, probably. Yeah.
Because I don't think you could get a porta potty put in for 25.
I don't think we can. No, certainly not if we're having dropped in with the crane. Yeah. Most of it's well exceeding $25,000.
Did I see Babcock Boulevard on there? For $2.5 million?
There was something on there for Babcock.
Storm
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 sewer.
storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did that give
Well.
I didn't.
Yeah, I think, is that here? So that will be 25 and 26. So typically with most utility projects, they're phased over 2 years. The first year is design, engineering, and then the second year will bid and construct. So the years on here are not the year it will be completed. It's the year that we're going to enter into a contract to start the work. So I don't know how long that's going to take. That probably will only take a year, but that ideally will be the year that it gets started. It will be fiscal 25, and then construction would start in fiscal 26.
Yeah, just as an FYI, there are traffic studies going on that top right now. That's one we hear a lot about this evening. So Public Works has been doing traffic studies on that for
So with the on the public works, CIPs and stuff like that, I understand that you know the Heights Water Board has half of the Heights pretty much. So was there not any water or sewer CIP projects scheduled for any of this in the Heights?
So the Heights Water District, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, handles the water supply, but the city has the wastewater on all that, right? So the wastewater projects, if there were, I don't think there were any wastewater projects planned for the Heights. That's this transportation. So there are no utility projects that I found for the Heights water or wastewater projects planned.
And so yes, the Heights is split down the middle. The city does still provide water for half the Heights.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was no CIP projects planned for that, and why? Why not?
For water and wastewater, I'm not certain how they determine need. I know they go through, they have a scoring system for their projects, and then the ones that have the highest need and priority get put on the program.
Okay.
There may be projects, and I'll highlight two that are kind of generic. Where is it? There's an annual water line program and annual wastewater line program. I'm not seeing them on there right now. I think I see the wastewater main replacements. They'll do, that might be it. They'll do some projects every year just to get the old pipes out and put new ones in. And they haven't necessarily identified where those projects are going to be 4 years from now or 3 years from now. So they're probably not mapped because we don't know exactly where those are going to be yet. But I believe there may be some, I don't want to say they're in the Heights because I don't know, but they're wherever their need is in town, and they're kind of on a cyclical basis.
Can I clarify too, that the city provides all the water to all the Heights? So, but anything that the Heights Water District charges for, they are accountable for the infrastructure, so you pay for that. There is a significant cost when they finish the West End water plant to get the water to the Heights. And that's in the planning, but it's not showing up here, but it will show up in the wastewater plan. Because I've read the plan, I just don't, it's been a while, so I can't cite numbers.
All I'm saying is Pam, the city still has half of the Heights.
Right.
With their whole, they maintain the water lines within that half, and then the water board maintains the other half of that. So all I'm saying is, but there's nothing prepared or nothing in that for the city's side of the half water and all of the sewer for the next 4 years. So that's, I think everybody hears what I'm saying, so.
Yeah, well,
The city right now is in the process of putting in, I think it's 3 miles, isn't it?
For the Bell Loop?
Oh, for the Alkali Creek.
Up to the inner belt loop area.
Yeah.
So, but
That's-
putting in sewer and water, so the city basically just deals with major trunk lines, and then your developers have to pay for everything else. So, if they don't need a trunk line put in, then it's just up to your developers. They hook up to what they got out there, and that's the reason they're running this out on Alkali Creek, is because they annexed 400 some acres, I think, and they're starting to build there, and so they need that, plus it's the lead in to the inner belt loop, because they gotta get sewer and water up to there eventually, and so this is kind of a stepping stone type deal, but they were supposed to be putting a new reroute line into the airport. Is that in here any place, do you know? That was like 2 years ago, they were talking serious about that, because there's,
I don't know, actually, I'm not sure where that is. I remember
Isn't
talking
that-
about it.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, again, one second. Yeah, so the water main replacements, it's right there, I did just see that.
Yeah, there it is.
The
Isn't
wastewater main replacements, those are the two that
The
are.
Skyway Drive loop is what I think you missed there, Andy.
Oh, okay, I did not, it might be mapped to the airport, I did not highlight any of the airport.
And sorry, where is the Fox, isn't the Fox Reservoir, the one here in the Heights?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
Fox Reservoir as well.
Okay, this is why I say go to the map, it's way better. Where's the Fox Reservoir?
Up ways, not Skyview.
Not on
That's what I thought, yeah, it's that one up there, isn't it?
here?
Yeah.
Oh. Apparently I stopped when I got to the water, I stopped highlighting when I got to water, so there is. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's what I was wanting to
Like
ask, is there
stormwater,
any
okay.
going on or any plan? And thank you.
Yeah,
So I see there is something.
Yep, there are some there. Yeah.
Okay.
And these would be new lines. Again, that those main replacements, they could be in the heights. Those are, I think, they're largely driven by age of the system. So the older stuff gets done first.
any other questions for Andy?
Question about the rec center's bonding,
Yep.
who pays?
So if it's approved, so there's two funding sources. The tax increment district, which is taxes collected within that area are used for redevelopment in that area. So that would fund approximately a third of the project. And then the 2/3, the 68 million portion, it would need to be covered by geo debt, and that would be the entire city if that was approved.
In theory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are these other sort of ancillary conversations about that bond. That maybe there would be a slight expansion into what are the school district boundaries or whatever that is. And then this sort of less developed conversation about, well, what about the county? The vision is that everyone in the county would come use it. So should the county also, should it be a joint levy or some sort of whatever that is? And it's really important to keep in mind when we talk about who pays. The taxpayers will pay for the construction, but then there's a user fee, like a member fee on top of that. So the people who go would also pay. Hopefully that would cover some of the O&M. And potentially in that scenario, you have a city rate and a county rate if the county had paid for any capital. But the who pays, I think, is a very open question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Problem with the city and county rate on that's just like our landfill.
You gotta
Where are you from?
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So-
exactly right.
You got a 3 license plate, or they don't even have any 3
More,
license
more,
plates
yeah.
anymore, but yeah, so.
Unless
Yeah.
someone's checking IDs at the door.
Yeah.
At this point, just to be clear, these are staff recommendations on how to accomplish the project. These are not approved by council. So that's the recommendation at this point.
So if there's a $61 million, if it's approved, $61 million paid by the city, by everybody in the city, what's the term, over what period of time?
Yeah, so geo bonds are typically over 20 years, and that approximately $68 million would cost the median home $68 to $70 a year for that 20-year term.
What's a medium home anymore? It become very,
The ones they're building at the Salvation Army.
Yeah, those are probably a little high end. No, so a median home, I know, I'll get laughed at here, that's all right. So the way I figured, it's $228,000 to get straight to the answer.
Tax assessed value.
Yes, tax assessed value. So I've taken all of the property, all the residential properties in Billings, and just say, stack them least to highest, what's dead center in the middle, it's $228,300 or something.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, it's the only value every other year. So your home, so that's the value as of January 1, 2020, which is what your tax bill you just got is still at that same value unless you built a new home in the last 2 years, and it's at whatever it is. Next year, that median home is going to go up, and it should get close to market value again. Every 2 years, it gets adjusted approximately to market value. So that's why it's low right now. It probably will go up quite a bit. However, I don't think that means the tax dollar amount will go up, because we still are only trying to generate the debt payment on $68 million. So we still only need that same $68, $70 approximate for that median home, even though your value would go up.
A related question though is that 68 million is not generated by the bonds, because you gotta pay the interest on the bonds. So what are you projecting? And I know that question came up last night, but so what is the interest rate gonna cost, and how will that drive up the total?
Yep. So right now, interest rates, if we were to go borrow, securing with the tax base, interest rates for the city are going to be probably in that 4 to 4.5% range. They've been going up, as everybody knows, so it could go up. I'm not aware that they're planning on increasing interest rates anytime in the future, but that dollar amount could go up. But the $68 per year for that median home would cover the expected debt payment on principal and interest at about that 4.5% rate.
Okay. And so if people didn't watch the council meeting last night, the total package for parks is how much?
So the CIP has projects in here that are funded through debt totaling, I want to say about $125 million. But last night, Parks proposed a plan to do two things. One, address that PD1 sunset, as well as develop multiple parks, including Castle Rock, around the city. And that total ask was $158 million. But that included the rec center. So that included a lot of the projects that are in here, but also some that are not. The full development of Castle Rock, Cottonwood, Colson Park, Stagecoach Trail, up Zimmerman Trail, and
Plus 11.1 million and.
the $158 million was just for the capital side. Yeah, and there was an additional to cover that operating, to cover the replacement of PD1 as well as add additional O&M dollars ongoing. Again, that was Parks' proposal to council hey, here's what we would like to see at this point. I think there's a lot of work to go into that before anything goes to the voters to determine what projects are going to be included, what that timeline is going to look like, how much of it's going to be funded with tax-supported debt as opposed to donations, user fees. As Jennifer said, how big is that tax base going to be? City council only has the authority to ask voters to approve city boundaries. If it was to expand beyond that, it would have to be whatever that elected body is, likely county commissioners, to push that out to say, yeah, do you guys outside of the city of Billings want to pay for this? So that'd be a big lift, I think, to get there, but it is a discussion that's been happening, or an idea. I did get a question about Barrett Road, right? So I can read or show you the email that I got from Public Works, but as Frank said, I'll cry if you ask me any hard questions. So there was a question about sidewalks along Barrett Road. generally the response from Public Works was, hey, there's sidewalks in all of the city portion except for the section that's being developed. And as that's developed, the road will get expanded and sidewalk will get added to that portion. And there's a few bullet points there. I don't know if there's anything really that you want to see. I'll forward this to Pam so she can push it out. Yep, I'll show you the proposed.
I really would like to know, when did they do the traffic analysis in July when school was out of session? I mean,
No, we can, yeah.
unbelievable.
I'm sure they'll let you know, but yeah. This is the proposed map of the development, and this should be put directly east of the school, I believe.
Right. Yep.
So there's Hauling Drain and the Barrett Road on the north side here.
And then Hawthorne is over here.
Yep.
And so when this was passed annexed to the city, the developer has to put city sidewalk in all the way to Hawthorne. Once you get to Hawthorne, then it's county both sides of the road. So hard to say what will happen there then, but part of the deal with him to get this in and that, he's supposed to put sidewalk all the way to Hawthorne.
I think that's on here, so I think they're showing that. Assuming that's this here, probably the sidewalk going all the way out to there.
And probably the reason that they're doing it now is if you are in the construction business, you know what it's like to get anything done this year. If you wanted to order cement, if you weren't a regular cement contractor, you might as well forget it. They'll say, in 4 months, we'll probably be able to get to you. That's the same way with this heavy equipment stuff. They just didn't, I mean, there's so much going on, they just couldn't get it. This is a good time of year to work on it. You'll probably get a little cheaper rate besides, because otherwise some of these would probably be out of work in the winter time. They will get it finished up, and it's going to inconvenience people for a while, but that's the way construction goes, so.
I think the couple bullet points that I thought were interesting, just since you're up here driving around, you know. So the sanitary sewer construction on Barrett Road is expected to be completed December. And then it's going to be gravel all through the winter and curb and paving being done in April of next year. So find an alternate route.
So that gravel will satisfy everybody because it's going to slow traffic down by the school,
Yeah.
so there you go.
Get some washboard in there and slow it down. So.
All right, any more questions for Andy? If not, we're gonna let him go home, so.
I just have a quick question. So, will any part of the West End water treatment plant be completed this year?
This fiscal year?
Not this one, but, well, yeah,
Yeah, before June.
that would impact the rates.
I'd be surprised. I mean, given the fact that we haven't bid the project yet, they may get some of the intake portion done. I don't know what that takes, but a lot of the dirt work and plant construction, I think, are going to take a pretty substantial time to get completed. So I'd be surprised if those were completed.
They had most of that stuff, the intake all bid out and the plant bid out, and then they decided they were gonna wait and try for the Rick grant, was it, again?
Yep.
And I don't think they got
They
it.
did not get it, but they identified another Bureau of Reclamation grant that may offset some of the reservoir costs.
Yeah.
So they're starting from ground zero again, pretty much.
But we had great inflation during that time, so maybe maybe the pricing got worse. Probably. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll direct it to the right person who can answer it.
Thank you, Andy.
You bet.
Appreciate it. I heard your wife's got prime rib or something like that before you get home, so.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, we don't have a police officer yet, so we'll just skip over that.
Can I just ask you a quick question about that?
Yeah.
At the executive session, we talked about, because it's difficult to read the police report up on the screen. So I printed them on half pages. I mean, I included, so it's fairly spendy, but the person who prints, originally I said print black and white, and he said you're not going to be able to read it. So we printed in color. So if you think this is worth it, I'm happy to keep doing that. I just have to reformat it so that it prints on half pages. And then I did link the whole report, but this is all the data that's relevant at the height. So If you have feedback, positive or negative, let me know.
Okay. All right, so we got all that part done. Next thing, we'll start with people that are here for reports, and I believe we started from the bottom up and working up, and so I guess we'll hear from Jen first, school board.
Oh, thank you.
That doesn't mean you can leave her, we just give us reports.
Well, I was just going to mention that we're doing redistricting. We built 2 new middle schools back in we passed 2013 elementary bond. We built 2 new middle schools, and shortly after that, we did redistricting. Since then, there's been a lot of building going on in the Heights and on the West End, and so some schools are getting a little crowded, and there is a little bit more room in some others, so we are looking at trying to move boundaries, which is always sort of painful. But nothing is set in stone, and so please go to the school district website if you or any of your neighbors would like to see what is being proposed and can make recommendations if you think, they don't quite understand the area. So please do that so we can get your feedback. We're trying to make a decision by January or February at the latest so that we can get these boundaries in place for when school starts, or people start enrolling in the spring, and so they want to know where their kids are going to go to school. So we'd like to get it done.
So, can I ask you a question? The 2 junior highs in the Heights or middle schools are overcrowded. So what are you gonna do with them? You gonna ship them downtown someplace?
That's not what it looked like had been proposed, but it did look like there was going to be more of a split rather than straight north and south, be more diagonal. So it seemed like the numbers that I remember that Mexican Crow had a little bit more room than Castle Rock, and they were going to make an angle. That's what they were proposing.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yes.
How's the search going for the new superintendent?
Well, we are putting out an RFP for a vendor to help us go through the process, and that's the first step, and those are supposed to be in by the end of November. And hopefully it will keep moving. There has been a proposal that if we can't get it done by the end of June, when Greg up and leaves, then we would have an interim. But we're moving forward as fast as we can. Any other questions on the redistricting? Then the only other thing I was going to mention was that at last night's meeting, we did approve money to do a feasibility study on the Gazette building. And I don't know if you have any history on that, but in 2018, we did a facilities master plan. And one of the things that was focused on was the Career Center. The Career Center is on the west end of town. And most of the kids that attend the Career Center are from West High. Surprise, it's the closest. Last year, 615 students were from West High, 326 were from Senior High, and 241 were from Skyview. I've been looking at this for many years, and the thing I keep hearing is Skyview is still no closer. Whether you renovate that building, whether you build new, there is room to build new out there, Skyview is still no closer. So, if the current building is not feasible for renovation, and they want to have it in another building, should we look at a more central location? So that's why we've been looking at, is there a more central location to put a career center? Because that building became available. Would it work? Would it not work? Could we use the Lincoln Center? Lincoln Center was built as a school. Could it be used as a career center? Could they both put together be used as a career center? It's more centrally located, but we need professional opinion to help us figure that out. Would the programs at the Career Center fit into those buildings?
We just went to the meeting with the Salvation Army, and we met the new owner of the Gazette building. I mean, he said he owns the building, and he's got businesses and employees, and he's trying to expand going east. So,
Okay, well, that's news to me, because I asked my realtor just last week, and he said there were no offers on the table.
so maybe he's ready, because our impression was that he bought it.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay, well, I will follow up with my realtor then.
Okay. or drop into the building.
I'm sorry?
They drop into the building. They're producing chemicals there. They're producing things that they sell on Amazon. They've got a fairly large workforce.
Okay, so we'll follow up with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing about the Career Center, if and when we get the interhealth movement finished, that would probably cut off about 15 to 20 minutes for Skyview kids to get to the west end. So,
Well, and that's true, but it's still a long way.
yeah.
Or you can do an annex right up on this tiny land and bring some West End kids out
You're
here.
right, yes. And then Zimmerman Trail is sometimes a challenge in the winter. So then it's still, we're just trying to look at all options before
Well,
we
the
make.
other thing is that when you talk about bridge opens up, Lockwood's building a career center. It's made, I mean, it may be cost effective to send kids to Lockwood. They've come to us for years. I mean, that's just a possibility. Career center is a fabulous program, but
It is.
inaccessible to Skyview.
It is.
On a safe basis.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jana? Thanks, Jana. You're up, Jennifer.
Okay, so quite a bit going on at City Council. I just wanted to highlight a few major things that I think the task force should keep an eye on. I think Roy and I mentioned this last time we recorded, but council has established a number of policy-making committees. One of them is a legislative liaison committee, and Roy was elected as chair of that committee. One of the other committees we've established is a budget committee, and I was elected chair of that committee. So we have a good representation from our Heights folks and leadership there. The other two committees, one is sort of an internal logistics and operations committee. That's our three leaders position on that, the mayor, deputy mayor, and Roy as mayor pro tem. And then the last committee is a joint local affairs committee that we're hoping the school board and the county will join us on. So we have sent our materials to both of those entities and invited them to pass comparing resolutions and join us in being a part of a joint local affairs committee to work on those issues of shared interest. Andy mentioned a little bit during the CIP some of the significant funding decisions about parks fundings that are ahead of us. One of the things we need to put that in the context of is other major spending issues that are out there. And the big one that's not in the capital improvement plan because it was slated for this year is the Stillwater building. Right now that building is in the ballpark of $10 to $12 million over budget, coming up in the sort of low 40s. So there will be a presentation on Monday night about where things stand, along with some cost reduction recommendations. The cost proposal right now is really high-level interior finishes, and those can come out pretty easily, and that shaves a few million off the budget. There is, I think, very little appetite on council for financing the Stillwater building, for doing debt spending, so it really is going to be a budget cut. At this point, we're going to have to cut some construction costs, we're going to have to cut some expectations, and we're going to have to cut some other things out of the budget. So contextually, a very expensive Stillwater building, a significant rec center proposal, a ongoing parks capital, and ongoing park maintenance. I mean, we're starting to really rack up the spending requests right now, and I think that's very problematic. So I have asked that the budget committee get to spend some time working on budget cuts across the board to address some of these proposals before I'm very opposed right now to going out to the taxpayer for most of this because I don't think we've done our due diligence to tighten the budget internally. So those are some of the spending issues that are ahead of us. As you know, we're now a year since we passed the public safety mill levy. Chief St. John did a presentation to council and all the chiefs of updates on where things stand, and they have committed to us that they will be doing community presentations, including at the task force. I don't think that's happened yet, So I would encourage the task force officers to request those presentations, to request that Chris and the chiefs and Gina come up here and be accountable to what's been accomplished with public safety mill levy funds. Another thing that was discussed at council last night was land disposition. The city has a fair bit of land that it holds that it doesn't have any plans for, and so council's asked them to be a little more diligent in dispensing and disposing of that land. They've completed a map now that anybody, it's a GIS map, you could see what lands the city owns around the city and which ones are recommended for disposition. There are quite a few in the Heights. Some are small, some are, kind of medium size. But there's land that's sitting on the books for no reason, and we have no point developing it. So those are opportunities for commercial development, for housing developments. There's plenty of uses, and it doesn't need to be on the tax rolls. So hopefully we'll see some of that land start to move. But really, if people are looking to develop in the Heights, people who are looking to expand businesses, build houses, there's property out there that we should be getting rid of. I know we've mentioned this before, but I just am going to keep saying it again. Really, really, really need the task force involved in charter review conversations. Every 10 years, we review our city's charter, and we decide this is the type of government that we want to continue. I think there's some real things that we need to wrestle with. The people in our city government, much like, honestly, in our state government, who have the most power are the ones who don't stand for election. And so you have a legislature at the state level and a council at the local level that probably has more authority than it flexes, but not enough authority to, you really want to have to stand up and talk to the voters. And I'm not sure that the structure we have right now is in the best interest of the voters. So there will be a charter review commission to take a look and make proposed recommendations, but really the task force are the places where those conversations should be starting. So would really encourage you guys to be thinking about charter review and redistricting issues. Where the wards are matters. The Heights used to be east-west split, we're now north-south split. Ward 1, you can debate whether or not that really serves the Heights' interests or whether or not a redistricting proposal could better make sure the Heights' voice is heard on council. There are still a few city spots open on commissions and boards for which there are no applicants. I think there's about 5 left. Animal control, the community development, maybe the human rights board. So there's a couple of spots that are still open if people are interested in applying.
And those are linked on the agenda, so they can open it up and take a look.
Good, okay, yeah. So there will be some appointments getting made. We had about 37 vacancies, 32 have been filled. There's still 5 that had no applicants come in. And then the last thing I would note is, as you all know, the city has a growth plan that it's supposed to review every 5 years, and it doesn't. And then after that, they're supposed to update neighborhood plans, which it also doesn't do. But there has been an effort to try to secure some state funding to do a West End development plan because of all the changes that have happened out there. And the city has been looking at planning dollars and thinks that if they can get that state grant, they can actually split it and do one in the West End and one in the Heights because of the bypass coming in and the significant needs that we have. It is my hope that that will be more of a economic development plan, something that makes the case for more investment in the Heights, rather than just sort of the nonprofit and government spending plan that it's been in the past. I have started to work on a list between the 2006 Heights plan, what's been accomplished and what hasn't, so we at least can have a good bearing as to what was promised to be done and what needs to still be done. But I'm hoping that we can have a more expansive look, and then hopefully we will be doing that Heights economic vision in the next year or so. So I'll be back at the task force asking you guys to help me check off the things that have been done or the things that shouldn't be done anymore. But hopefully we will be doing a Heights development plan here sooner rather than later.
There are actually things that have been done from that plan.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I was actually surprised at some of the things that had been done.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I think folks probably saw this in the news, but there will soon be book lockers at St. Vincent's here at the walk-in in the Heights, so people can go online, check out books from the library that we delivered to the book lockers up here. So, are there any questions about what's going on at the city level? Yeah.
Chris referenced the email from the architect about the homeless shelter at the church, but that wasn't in today's email. So did he send that to council? And have you read that?
He did send it to council, and I don't think I've read it. Let me just check and see when it was sent. At 5 o'clock. So we
Today?
haven't done posted yet.
Yeah, okay, so it'll post it tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like what they're gonna do is immediately open it for a temporary use permit,
Okay.
and then they've listed out the things that have to be done.
Okay.
That's for the one at First Church. I don't know what they're doing with the Rescue Mission building.
Yeah, they told them no.
Well, they told them there was a lot to do, and I don't
Right.
think the Rescue
Well,
Mission.
for the rescue mission, but whatever the building they were gonna use, they told me.
Building 21, yeah. And so I don't know if they intend to invest in that. I just don't know. That's not city funded, so.
Yeah.
Alrighty, we don't have any, oh, Wes,
I don't know if you've seen an email from Amber this morning, but as of last time she checked, I think around 4 o'clock, our comments were not on Channel 7.
She sent one that said they had been posted.
It has.
Yeah, I watched this morning and all of your comments were off. And then I tried to finish it tonight and realized, and it wouldn't start. So somehow Community 7 fixed it. So I went back and watched the comments from the beginning.
But how, I don't understand how that happened, because it's right in the middle of the meeting.
This has been repetitive too. First time we've noticed it, it didn't happen till 9 o'clock the next morning when I guess I fixed it. It just not.
It's a live stream.
To me, it just makes a light bulb go off. Why they censoring only us, and then of course they're coming in with somebody else.
On stuff, it's maybe live stream on Facebook, but I watch it on YouTube, because then I can control it better. Facebook didn't look that's off. And YouTube did not have the initial comments this morning.
So it gavels the council in, the mayor does
It
his
didn't
remarks,
have it.
or it just doesn't start
It
until after public
it
comment.
started at the gal from the biking trails for
So
comment.
it wasn't just your comment, the whole,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
The whole, but it was on there
And that's
tonight.
happened before.
Okay, that's
We've noticed that, but mainly on the work sessions. Is that what you had last night?
Yeah, so I just want to be clear, they're not showing the meeting, stopping it until you're done talking and then going back into it.
No,
They're
no,
just not
no,
starting until after you've
Right.
got it, okay?
Right.
Thank you.
So, and then the other question, I wanted to say, I appreciate that you're bringing up comments about the spray park. I mean, to me, I think there's several questions. The spray park at Castle Rock, Larry Brewster said was $190,000. And all the proposed spray parks are $1.8 million. You can't, and I know that, Mike is now saying they think they can save $700,000 to $800,000 per park. I
have no confidence in Parks Department numbers.
Yeah.
As I pointed out last night, the Castle Rock Park project has gone from an $11.6 million project to a $17 million. It's ludicrous.
Right.
Not if we built the rec center in Castle Rock Park would it cost that much. I mean, I don't have confidence in those numbers, and I think I made that clear.
But
the spray park in South Park was like 1.3 million.
Because it
was supposed
recirculated, right?
supposed to be 1.1. And they got all these pumps sitting underground, and they recirculate the water, and those pumps sit vacant for 9 months of the year, which isn't good for them. And they're spending 1.3 million, and now they got it up to 1.8 million, and you use them for less than 3 months of the year. Those other spray parks around town were just as good. Even in Castle Rock Park, the kids get wet, and it doesn't cost $1.8 million.
It does. And I mean, I've personally been told by Parks Department staff that they inflate their numbers so that they can have money to do with what they want.
Right.
They're not shy about it. I've raised it with Chris. It's why I'm very serious about working in the budget. So I don't have confidence in any other numbers.
But stick to that. I mean, all this rabble cattle about, we've got to save money on water. It's ridiculous. You cannot recover $1.6 million worth of water.
Especially when you don't pay water, right?
Right.
The Parks Department does not charge.
Right.
And so when there's water shortages, we just turn them off.
Right. Yeah. And I also do support getting rid of the SIDs, because I think the people that I know are furious about the SIDs. And because they're double charged. They have to pay for private park, and they have to pay for the one in their neighborhood. And the perception is that the park district makes money on those SIDs.
Because they don't invest in the maintenance
Right.
at the level they charge.
So there's 9 parks that pay for water to the Heights Water District and a 233% markup between what the Heights Water District buys water and sells it back. But which includes all of Castle Rock, which is a lot of money. But then all of the others are SIDs, so we're ripping out the local taxpayers twice.
Some of the SID assessments or the park improvement districts are quite high. You
Right.
take those assessments because there's very few homes,
That's
they're very high.
because the Parks Department bumps them up, so they got slush fund money to use. So, okay, enough of that, no county commissioners, so legislators, you got a little time left. Huh?
I'm a has-been
No, you're a lame duck.
for a month yet.
Well, what's going on?
Oh, they just met, picked for leadership. They're doing the committee's structures now. And, starting to work on their bills. Session will start January 2nd.
Okay, Terry, did you get in, or are you a legislator?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
But also the ARPA grants, the water district has not turned in any records to get their money for their ARPA grants.
Not that I could find.
Okay.
all right, so done with those reports, so let's move on so we can get out of here. Any other business that's not on the agenda? Anybody? Ed?
Since Jennifer was mentioned about parks and whatnot. One, in March, we had a lady here from some aspect of the city that was going on about how she's in charge of redoing the new neighborhood plan for this area. And she went on and on and on and on about what it is and why it is this and this and that and the other. And Roy looked at me and said, "You've already done this." So that's what I told her. I said, "I have the 2006 with notes from the task force members and a resurvey of 2019. And I said, I said in front of everybody, I said, I want you to have this. I'll give it to you out of my car, but that should make your life a lot easier. And oh yes, that's going to be a big step up the ladder for me in getting this planned ahead of time." I think it's time now, 8 months later, that we invite that lady back here and say, tell us what all you've done in the last 8 months with the material that we gave you, okay? The other thing, I have a couple things about Castle Rock, but we won't get into that tonight. I spend time over there snooping around, and anytime I see anybody building or doing anything, and a bunch of trucks and enclosed trailers and toolbox trailers and everything all show up, and there ain't a name of nobody or no construction company or anything. So who's doing that over there? Did we just get, Pancho and Lefty out of New Mexico to fill in on this gig, or what? Who's in charge of that thing? Well, who is it? So that was that. I have questions about those kind of things.
What was this at?
Over here at Castle Rock.
Doing the
Doing
playground.
the playground, there ain't a soul over there that knows nothing. And then, I'm gonna skip over a couple of things here. There was a big resounding tone last night at the council meeting about biggest bang for your buck. We need to be looking at more bang for our buck, and there's several things in here. One of which I would like to ask again. In 2018, the city was all concerned about how we're going to police the parks, and we hired or created a new position for the park ranger or whatever this or that was. Well, I was chairman. That would have been about a year into that thing. I asked Tina Hager, I said, "Who's the story on this guy? I'm up there at midnight, I'm up there in the morning, I'm up there during the days, and I don't ever see nobody doing that." She says, "Well, you need to talk to Sergeant somebody or other. That's his supervisor." So I wrote a nice letter to the sergeant, whatever his name was, saying that this, that, and the other, we understand, we're welcoming any of things that are going on. I'd like to touch base with you on what this park ranger has been doing, and I would certainly think that it's not out of the realm for you to furnish me a copy of his daily log for the last 90 days. So I'll know, where is he? If he's not here, where is he? This or that or the other. I think most of you all know me, and the quickest way for me to chop your knees out from under you is to blow me off. I never got a comment back from him. I said it again, I never got a follow-up or anything. So, bang for buck, do we still have this bird? Is he So is he going around picking up the needles and the dog poop in the park, or is he handing out citations? How much money has his job generated in fines for us? And if he's not doing that, I think it's time that we terminate him and or the position. So that's food for thought. That gets on the bang for your buck.
That's a question.
I was real thrilled.
That's a question for the chief.
Well, it's a test for all of us, so, because did anybody know what I was talking about here tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, one or
He
two.
spent the bulk of his time at North Park.
Well,
And nobody ever sat in North Park because of
Yeah.
homeless.
So, well, that be that as it may, I think we're due some answers there. I was thrilled to hear Mr. Boyette. He went on 2 comments last night that were all related to bang for our buck and whatnot. One, why would we want to build new parks when we haven't finished the old parks? So I think we ought to send him a little note or something about, hey, listen, I'm behind you, and we have one over here that's been waiting for completion for about 40 years. And then he was going on about this as we were relating to the funding of all of this stuff, where people are paying for neighborhood park districts, and then we're wanting to add a new funding for parks. He said, why would you want to pay for something that's already being done? Right?
You're talking about the PMDs.
Yeah, and that's a lot to say. If stuff is being already paid for by your tax dollars, why would you then vote in favor of icing further on top of the cake that you get to pay for again? So my hat's off to Boyette on that. I'm not a fan of his on some other things I've seen him do, but I'll give him kudos on that. The last thing, I am really concerned about where we're headed with the development of the inner belt loop and the bypass. This has been an opportunity, and I'm glad we're getting the bypass, but I kind of, in Ed's world, you know how strange that is, but I call it the road to nowhere. I mean, to make it work the way it should be, it's got to be picked up from where it is on this north end and taken right out to Highway 3, which you saw where it was underway years ago before we had a new state center. I'm concerned about that really because we still have a water issue. This gentleman brought up some questions about water tonight. The city buys this water, who supplies it? The senator said, the city supplies all the water to the Heights through a middleman. A group of us all a few years ago said we can't have any more of that because we had at these meetings developers, engineers, people that even said, hey, listen, we never had this conversation, but you're never going anywhere as long as you got that water. That's why we pursued this thing, and I don't know where we are now, but you can bet your bottom dollar that if we're talking about this outer loop, which isn't far from being done, well within the parameters of anybody that wants to put a Lockheed plant out here. They're already making plans, and they don't have to do much when they constantly read in the newspaper, bickering back and forth about water. And if you think they're going to get involved in that mess, when I drive down the South Frontage Road to the storage building down there at Interstate Storage and see what's going on there and on the farther end past that and whatnot, I'm really afraid that we might just wake up in 3 or 4 years and be just as economically depressed. We've got a couple of nice new roads, and we can get the kids out to the other end of town for the thing on the inner belt loop. But I don't know. I think we are going to shoot ourselves in the foot. And lastly about that, I know a brewer elsewhere in the state that wants to enlarge his capacity and would like to come to town. I suggested, or peripherally, that property behind the Pizza Ranch between 2 major connectors, Main and Bench, you'll love it. I was tipped by another person that said Costco had looked at that years ago and would not get involved with the fight with the water. This has got to go away. I don't know why we have the damn water deal anymore, but if everybody just goes along with it, then the Heights will just have a nice new road around here, but
And when you look at the bypass report, every single group that was met with, the realtors, the bankers, and the developers all said that the Heights Water District is hindering development in the Heights. And so, but honestly, you can still, the board there will continue to raise rates, look at these split without management. You can change the board, but you're never gonna get control of it until you get rid of the district. And that is not possible by the legislation. That's gotta take people working with legislators. And I know we have some legislators on board that wanna see that. There's no point to the district, there never was. And it's the once the district got annexed in, once the
sewer came in and annexed the Heights, it should end.
Right.
So, that's for another day.
yeah. So
You
I'll
had
settle
your,
on
you
that
had your
today.
last 3 times already, so we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
We're getting out here at
More for
8:30,
you
whether
this
you like it or not. Wes, you said you had something to add.
I would. If y'all have a minute for me, I'd like to speak. So I just really want to kind of clarify some things, and I don't think any of y'all really know me, and I kind of want to share that with everybody
You
here.
got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you, Frank. So I met a beautiful woman from Billings here in Hawaii. I used to work for Delta, so I flew over there and went on vacation and met her, and that's how I got here. She moved down to Georgia about 5 years. We had a child. We wasn't married, so I followed Intel to be a dad. Ever since I've been here in Billings, it seems like I've always had to play politics. I've always had to play that game of politics just with Billings, and I don't know why. I've never had to deal with that for 27 years where I'm from. And so I've learned it, but I don't like politics. I never have, but now I see myself right in the middle of it. What's been happening next door is really what's gotten me here. There's been a lot of things about me that has been said through a public, forum that made me look like I was a wife beater, like I was just a gun-toting redneck and I just wouldn't shoot up the town. And that's not it at all. I've never been like that. I'm not after the police. I've always respected the police to the bottom of my heart. But when for the past 2 years, me and my family have been treated by the police, it did a lot of, it did a lot of things to everybody, and it changed the way I look at Billings a lot. And I see that we need help. We need a lot of help, and I enjoy coming to stuff like this because I see there's a lot of like-minded people. We're not all going to agree on everything. You're not going to, agree with how I might view things or whatever. But we care. We all care here, and so I don't want your support. I just kind of wanted to introduce myself. I'm here for the long run. My wife wishes she could be here. She's here for the long run too. And we want to help, and we want to have the Heights in the city of Billings be a better place for our kids. And I never really realized that until I had a child at 27 years old, when I came and moved up there. It changed my whole life. I'll tell you, if it wasn't for my son Houston, I would either be dead or in prison right now. So I've been down that road before. Once I moved up here, I became a dad, and all that changed. I got away from all that down in Atlanta, and I just want to see a better Billings. And I'm here. I'm here for if anybody needs any help. We're getting involved. We're starting to meet the right people, but I just don't want people to look at me because of I went after the police department, so they came after us, and then he put out a bunch of false information. I went to jail one night back after 2020, after I lost my job in Billings. And the reason why I went to jail is because I lost an argument with 4 women. It was my 2 stepdaughters and my wife, and one of her friends that she had brought up from Georgia. So the best thing to do was just get me out of the house, and so they took me to jail that night. So I spent the night in jail. But then I got turned to a man called Bob Bacco, and I know probably a lot of y'all know Mr. Bob Bacco. And he changed the way I look at a lot of things and how to manage my anger, you know. And so just want to let y'all know that I'm not a bad man. I'm not, but I do care. I can be humble. Miss Jennifer has seen where I can be humble and I can listen. And but she's also seen where I can get heated on certain subjects that I really, truly believe and passionate about. So I just want to let y'all know that I'm here to help anybody out, but I wanted to let y'all know kind of who I am. And, you know, if you respect me, I'll respect you. And that's all I've ever lived, you know. Just,
Right.
thank you, Frank. I appreciate your time, bud.
So, Wes and Ed, you kind of are both on the same line that I'm going to strive for this year. And so, our next meeting is the 24th of January. And I would like it if everybody here would bring somebody with them next time. We have a Heights Task Force of over 30,000 population, and we've got 10 people here tonight, 9 people, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 people here tonight, 12 of Pam and myself. That's a pretty poor representation for 30,000 plus people. And like Ed was talking, that's what it takes is people to get together and to band together and let our plans known and strive for making this a better place. I went down to MDT today, Montana Department of Transportation. I have a real problem with Main Street in the Heights. From October to May, you cannot walk the sidewalks. Either they're covered with a big bank of snow, or they got gravel on them, a half-inch thick. You can't push a walker if you're 80 years old, or 60 years old, or 50 years old, or whatever. And that's where all the bus benches are. And so that's one of the things I'm going for, and so that's what I want you to bring 24th of January. We're not going to have anything else on the agenda except what you want to bring to make Billings Heights better. And I'm talking about serious stuff like that. We've got to do something with Main Street. The property owner part of it doesn't affect it because it's a state highway. So you do not have to clean your sidewalks. But there's no way you can make those sidewalks in the wintertime. And their Region 5 supervisor started 4 years ago. He's retired at the end of the month. But he's got 34 years now at the highway department. So, but in December, they're supposed to get a new one. So I'm going to go down and visit with him the first part of January, or her, or whoever it is. And we're going to come together and try and get a solution to making Main Street more palatable. I mean, what's that, 7 months of the year that you can't use the sidewalks on Main Street? And we're looking to increase business in the Heights. Come on, people.
Have you talked to Scott Aston later?
Who?
Scott Aston later?
He's
Performance engineer.
Oh, no, I've talked to him several times.
You know he's our MDT board member for our region.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he represents whatever this southeast region is
I
on the MDT
go
board.
to the main dude down
But
there.
I just give you another resource.
Yeah.
Start putting a bug in Scott's ear.
But we're gonna get some things done, and so I want people to bring things that they think that will make the Heights better, and also make the city of Billings better, because we are still part of the city of Billings. And one of my other big problems is when I heard Chief St. John say that we have about 3.5 shootings a week. I'm going like, you do the stats, you figure out what the population in New York is and how many shootings they have, and you figure Chicago population, and we tie Chicago, we're way, way, way higher than New York City. There we go. That's how we tie Billings. The Heights is actually a little bit calmer on crime, and I'm gonna start working on something to get it to where I can show you. I've done statistics and Heights crime, they do it by task force. Okay, so Billings Heights Task Force is 30,000+ people. And we're like 12% of the crime, total crime in the city of Billings. And the only one that we were up higher, I think we were like 19%, and that's calls for service. Well, calls for service can be anything. If you've ever been a fireman or a policeman, calls for service can be a ripped off fingernail, or you never know what it can be. So,
Put people back together.
yeah, so that's where we're going. So if you're here tonight, bring somebody with you the 24th of January, and then bring like your list tonight, Ed. Bring stuff that you really want to seriously try to improve, that we have a real good chance of getting done. Because if you can't make progress, you start losing interest. So you gotta make baby steps work before you can take the giant steps. Any questions?
I have one question on that, at the end of it, Frank. So we can bring this, and I'm trying to understand, how this task force works. We can bring this to this, but where does it go from here? Do we have to allow our council members to take it to the city?
And if we got something we're feeling really strong about, and we fill up all these chairs, and we go and we fill up the whole benches down there to city council, we might get them to listen a little bit. I sat on, it's funny, when you sit on city council, you cannot have dialogue with whoever presents. That's taboo. And the other thing is the city council needs to know, to realize that they're actually run the city. Chris just follows their directives. And that's not what's happening in the city right now.
If we have 6 votes who agree with us on that, and that's the challenge.
But it's still the city council
You're right.
that directs the city administrator, and right now it's the other way around.
And as long as you have 6 members who are comfortable following lead,
Yep.
those of us who push for more are stuck.
So, on a better note, happy Thanksgiving, and have a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. And I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Doug Terry so moves.